Okay, I think we can go back into session. Ms. McCarroll, you were making some remarks when you were interrupted.
Um, Well, we were talking about the balcony, and it's very distressing to walk through our bedroom and see the balcony in various places. If the balcony were facing the redwoods, I think that's south, that wouldn't be a problem. And if it were facing east, that wouldn't be a problem for us. We could support that. But facing our property and looking into our bedroom and my husband's side of the bathroom is very distressing. Even just walking through it now and sitting in the bedroom this morning, I was sitting on the sofa and I could see Mr. Bogan standing out there taking pictures of our house, which is fine, but that's how invasive it is. And again, it's very distressing. If the balcony were facing in another direction, that would be fine. Our houses are very close together. So that's my concern. Thank you.
Is there any other member of the public who wishes to address us on this item?
Let's see. Yeah, I had him in. I see just Nishant has his hand up because it kicked him out as a panelist.
No
So
member of the public.
I don't see any other hands, Mayor.
Okay. We'll bring it back to the council.
Mayor, if I may, under our hearing procedures, the applicant has a 5-minute rebuttal opportunity.
Yes. We have made an effort to address these privacy concerns, as I mentioned, by reducing the windows, which are only 10 feet from the property line in size and number. We feel like that part of the most important feeling of properties using quality is sacrifice from the windows I just mentioned, and really the only place to see over a fence and the landscaping is actually quality. And we also feel that since the front edge of the balcony is 33 feet from the property line, with another, I'm not exactly sure, but 14 to 20 feet to the neighbor's window in question, at some point it's 50 feet away and starting to go beyond the threshold of meaningful privacy. And then also, the photo was taken from where the proposed balcony is. That's also clear that in the photos showing the story poles that are on site. And so as you can see from the photo, it's an oblique angle view of the neighbor's window. I understand their concerns, and the privacy is a shared concern among my clients as well. The other thing that I'd like to just say is that we thought about we thought about actually having the west wall of the primary bedroom 4 feet further towards the west. The bedroom doesn't necessarily need it, but we want to enjoy that view, and so we actually consider this balcony as a buffer, additional buffer for privacy, because there will be a guardrail that sort of filters the light and the views through it, and it's a space that separates the living quarters again from a neighbor and from outdoor space. So that's our thoughts on the project and this particular issue.
Anyone have a question?
Yeah.
Julie?
Thank you, Mayor Cool. Did ADR have an opinion about the balcony?
They were pretty unanimous in the fact that the location of the balcony on the site, that it's so far from the property lines and really in the center of the lot, made it less of a concern from a privacy perspective. If it had been closer, 10 feet away from the property line, then they would have had concerns. But we can look back at the minutes, but that's my recollection of their feedback with that exact particular issue.
Thank you. Does anyone else from the council have any questions for the applicant? Okay, if not, we have no one from the public, so we'll bring it back to the council for discussion and action.
I'll make a comment. I think that the house will look beautiful when it's finished, and the improvements will look lovely. The pool will be fun. Is there a stumbling block with that deck? You know, the council doesn't usually approve second floor decks. You know, the neighbors are saying it's a deck and it affects privacy. And you know, should it be more of a balcony that's maybe 2 feet or 3 feet and not like a deck where people will be out there? I mean, would that make it a more, you know, a more reasonable project for everybody? I don't think the view would change whether or not there's a balcony, because no one's talking about changing the window size. The window's going to be there no matter what. And so there will be a view of Baldy no matter what. It's really, how do we feel about second floor decks? I know we haven't always approved second floor decks in the past because of privacy issues. So that's, to me, the only issue. Otherwise, to me, the whole project seems lovely without any concerns.
Anyone, you have comments?
Well, I don't recall that same hesitation about decks. I do agree that if the deck was closer, it would be of concern, but the placement of it seems appropriate. I mean, when I looked at how far away it is, I just feel like, I mean, yeah, I can think of houses on Bolinas and where we have approved decks. And so it seemed to me like it seemed a little inconsistent to say that given how far from the property, the two properties are, that this small modest deck was a problem. So that was my take. My only other take was I like that tree in front and wish they would have considered keeping it, but I'm not going to make it a requirement. I liked the tree in the front.
Just a comment about the deck. I think we have to keep in mind that the deck is only going to be used by people coming out of the master bedroom. So it's not like a party deck. It's going to be used by 2 people, right? And so I don't think it's like a big, huge deck on the second floor that people are going to be congregating at and making a lot of noise.
When I was out looking at the site, my impression was that the screening, if it were to be the way it was represented to be, and I think again characterized here tonight as being roughly twice as tall as it is now and a lot denser, that it seemed to me that would really obviate the problem. And we have emphasized this in the past, the utility of screening, and I've certainly been to properties where the screening was extremely effective. And I know the neighbors have expressed skepticism that the screening would be sufficient, but I have to say, it seemed to me that it would obviate the problem.
Anyone have any further comments? Okay, anyone want to make a
What do
vote?
you think?
Well, I have to say, I'm very torn. I understand what the neighbors are saying. On the other hand, I can't conclude that this deck is a huge invasion of the neighbor's property, which is going to affect how they live. And it does add something that the property owners want, and I guess I come down on the side of letting them have it. Any further comments?
As I understand it, the town does reserve the right to require additional screening in the future if the screening as built isn't adequate. So the neighbors would, I think, have the ability to come back to the town and say, this is not doing it. There's still a privacy problem.
So what
Is that
would this,
correct, or is it?
Yes,
That's
that
a
condition of
standard.
approval is in the resolution before you tonight.
And
That it's 3 years.
And so can you just explain to me how tall, what is the plant material that's going in and how tall do we expect it to be right away?
I think that's a good question for the architect, or if the landscape architect is available. Is Brad Exty on Zoom in the audience, Linda?
Yes, and let me bring him in.
Thank you.
Because my only question or suggestion is, I know we have the standard 3-year approval, but could we, I mean, looking at that picture that they provided, it seems to aim at a gap in the landscaping, which I looked out on site and they explained how they were going to cover it up. And it did seem to me, given the proximity of that landscaping to the deck, that it was going to do the job if it was even less tall than 25 feet. On the other hand, if they put it in and it's too small or doesn't solve the problem and doesn't look like it's reasonably going to within a short period of time, could we specifically condition it on placement of a tall tree in that location that, you know, mitigates the effect?
Is that a problem for the applicant?
Do you want the landscape architect to address any of those questions?
He's right
He's
there.
on Zoom.
No. Yeah. Okay, if we don't have any further questions, does someone want to make a motion?
Well, how did we settle should there be a landscaping plan with this, you know, a specific height goal or shrubbery or tree or you know,
Why
how do
don't
we
we
do
find
that?
out what it is? Is that okay,
Yeah.
Mayor? Can we ask the applicant or the architect to say what's going in and how tall they expect it to be?
Well,
Yeah.
as I understood it from when I was out there, you don't currently have a plan to put a tree in the way of the view. And so you're talking about putting a tree in the way of the view, right?
Well, what I was going to ask is, what is the, you know, how big of a box are they putting in right now? And what are they planning to put in? And then if there is a need to modify that, then, you know, especially given that our power kind of ends in 3 years, that we expressly can, you know, have this condition of approval that a tree be placed strategically to deal with the privacy. And it doesn't have to be a tree that grows to an indefinite height. You can always top a tree and choose a tree plant that you can manage better.
Well, how about leaving it to Rebecca, to staff, you've heard our comments, and making it a condition that staff will direct what additional particular planting has to be added.
I would like to hear from Brad as to what he envisions.
Yeah, I'm here. I can answer some questions. So we're proposing 3 magnolia little gem trees that they're pretty large when we purchase them from a nursery. They typically start at 12 to 15 feet in height, and they're evergreen and they're dense. And then we also have a screen shrub of Elaeocarpus in one location, which gets up to 15 to 20 feet. And then we have English laurel underneath the magnolia to fill the gap between the canopy and the ground. And in addition to that, we're proposing a new 6-foot wood fence. Right now, there's just straggly old bamboo and a falling down wire fence, and there's really no privacy or separation between the properties at all. So we're doing a robust screening to help mitigate the concerns of this and any other privacy issues that are even happening on the ground floor. So we do have a robust landscape plan that is included in the packet of drawings that shows every name of every plant, and we've taken a lot of care and a lot of thought into our privacy screening goals for everyone. And a magnolia tree, they're out in front of Ross right now. They're the trees that are in between the street right there and the town hall, and they are at least 25 feet tall. And it's exactly the same tree. So when you leave the meeting tonight, you can see the tree that we're proposing.
It does. And so with that, I would move to approve with the condition, the standard condition, and I guess a specific condition that if, you know, the privacy concerns raised today cause you to need to modify or work on this landscaping plan, you have the authority to do so.
And does that include where these 3 trees are? I mean, the house isn't shown, but it's almost like you need a 4th one to block the bedroom window view based on this picture. So can your motion be that, you know, if needed an extra, you know, an additional repositioning or an additional tree could be added?
I was just going to read condition 6 that's already in there to see what, in addition to condition 6, you're thinking of adding. Condition 6 is town staff reserves the right to require additional landscape screening for up to 3 years from project final to ensure adequate screening of the properties that are directly contiguous to the project site. Town staff will only require additional landscaping screening if the contiguous neighbors can demonstrate through pre-project existing condition pictures that their privacy is being negatively impacted as a result of the project. So for what I was hearing, that special condition, I think it's already encompassed in condition 6.
Is this contiguous neighbor, or is it one over, given the flag lot of the Royo property?
I would call it contiguous. It's even with the flag in between them, or the driveway in between them.
And we just add in the condition, the address of that lot to be clear.
Okay. Why don't we add the address, and with that, move to approve?
Is there a second?
All right, let's take the vote. How do you vote, Councilmember McMillan? Councilmember Robbins?
Aye.
Councilmember Kircher?
Aye.
Councilmember Breckus?
Aye.
And Mayor Cole? The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, that brings us to the next planning project, which is 24 Allen Avenue for design review and variance and town council consideration of adoption of resolution number 2269. Rebecca?
Thank you. Nishant will be giving the staff report for this project as well.
Just give me a second to share my screen. So this is the 24 Allen Avenue project. The property is approximately 11,000 square feet and has a slope of 2.084%, therefore is not a hillside lot. I'm just going to give you a general overview of what the project is proposing and some of its history. The applicant is requesting a design review to remodel and relocate an existing deck, construct a new in-ground pool and patio, and install new landscaping. In addition to that, a variance is required to allow the proposed renovation and new construction, namely the pool, to deviate from setback standards. One thing to note is that there is an existing ADU on the site, but that ADU was approved under a separate permit and is not part of the proposed project. The total impervious surface on the site will be increasing from 3,301 square feet to 3,784 square feet. The project, however, does include a bioretention basin that will offset 482 square feet of this increase. The project was originally reviewed at the June 21st ADR meeting, and at that meeting, ADR members did not support the project as designed, based primarily on concerns about the increase in impervious surface and setback encroachments. Subsequent to that meeting, the applicant revised the project and submitted some new designs. They replaced the proposed bocce ball court with permeable paving, removed the proposed barbecue, fire pit, and arbor from the project, and also submitted for a minor exception permit to address the pool equipment closet or pool equipment room that you see on the top of the site plan. That encroachment into setbacks was addressed through that separate process and has been approved and is also no longer part of this project. So the project was reviewed again at the August 16th ADR meeting. One member of the ADR group recused themselves from the project. 2 members stated that the setback encroachment from the proposed pool was too significant to meet necessary findings. 2 members stated that the design changes had improved the overall project and that while the pool encroached into existing setbacks, the project was consistent with surrounding developments and land uses and recommended approval. Staff has received 3 emails from surrounding neighbors in support of the project. I'm going to end my presentation and hand this over to the applicant, who also has a PowerPoint to present.
If you may, before we just follow our procedures, the applicant, the presentation, we ask questions of staff, and then we'll open a public hearing, and then the applicant for 15 minutes. I just want to stay with our procedures that we have adopted. So the next step is we have the questions of staff before we have your presentation.
Was any member of has the opportunity to make a presentation lasting up to 15 minutes. If you wish, you can save some of that time for rebuttal after the public comment.
Great. I will try to make it as quick as possible and as efficient as possible. First of all, I just wanted to thank you all as town council members, and thanks for this opportunity. And I did also want to just introduce myself. I'm Robin Looning. My husband and I have lived in Ross for, I guess, 11 years. We have 2 sons who are 13 and 15 in the center of our lives. We love living on Allen Avenue. We bought that home and intend to stay there forever. I mean, it's really where we want to be. Warren's not here tonight. He's at back to school night for our older son, so sorry he's not here. We are engaged members of the community. As I mentioned earlier, I spearheaded, and actually I could provide that spreadsheet to Ross Rec around, I spearheaded the initial numbers, like how many kids would it take to run this program. We're part of this community. We love being here. We love being on Allen Avenue, and just love being part of the community. You know, on a night like tonight, I think we can all think how wonderful it would be to have a pool in the backyard for your kids to play in safely, supervised with their friends, with our family, just, you know, being at home. And so that's really what we're trying to do. And I would say secretly, you know, with the intent of staying in this home forever, I hope it'll be a draw for grandchildren one day too, because I do know they love pools. So that's really what's driving this, this application. From here, I'm going to turn it over to Brad, who's on Zoom, to kind of talk overall about the project. We will go as quickly as possible so we can leave time for answering any rebuttals or questions.
I moved him out. I didn't realize he was going to
shoot.
be, yeah, so.
Well, is our time still ticking?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to have to stop share here.
Yeah, if you can go to slide 3.
Okay, Brad, go ahead.
I don't
Okay,
know
is there
if you
gonna,
did, Brad. I just kind of introduced myself and
yeah, I heard all that. I'm
project, and now if you could just
aware
give
where we are. Okay. Do I control the presentation or does somebody else here? Okay, yeah, let's start with this plan. And like Nishant explained, we had some other features and in our first pass, and we removed the bocce court, a barbecue, an arbor, and replaced it with, the bocce court was replaced with more planting where the olive trees are shown. And the deck was simplified, and it was clarified that all the patios were proposed to be pervious, not impervious. So that was part of the changes that we had made. And the ADU is existing, and we feel that the improvements fit very cozily into this space, and we still provide good privacy screening and separation from neighbors can we go to the next slide that has neighborhood context? Because this is very important. The pool fits into the context of the neighborhood in that every property adjacent to this property has a pool in the setback. So 19 Allen, 21 Allen, 32 Allen, 34 Allen, 36 Allen, they all have a pool within the setback, and some of the pools are closer to the property than our pool is proposed. 10 Allen and 22 Allen have garages and carports, and a lot of these homes are in the setback due to the size of the property. The setbacks are similar on this property as they are for a 1 acre property. So, you know, having development in the setback is virtually impossible to not have. Can we go to the next slide that shows the adjacent properties with the setbacks? So these are the adjacent properties. These are the setbacks that we've highlighted with the white boundaries. So if you 24 is our property, is 24 Allen. 32, you can see the pool almost touches the property line and is 100% out of the setback. 34, the pool is very close to the property line and out of the setback. 36, I mean, all of them have a pool in the setback. Number 10, the property most impacted by our project has a carport adjacent to where the pool is, and the house is very far away. And number 22 has a garage that's the most impacted. That's kind of I think more of a home office than a garage, but the house is very far away. And very importantly, which I think is pretty rare anymore, is that we have unanimous neighbor support. And I can't even think of a project where I've had unanimous neighbor support. There's some more diagrams about the setbacks to the property lines. And I just want to emphasize also that this is a very small pool. It's 12 by 26. A normal pool is, 20 by 40 or 18 by 38, or some even larger, doing some pools right now that are 60 feet, 50 feet. So it's a tiny pool. And so, it may feel like a lot to say we're putting a swimming pool on this property, but it's more like a large spa than a swimming pool. I'm happy to answer any questions. I think Robin wants to talk a little bit about neighborhood context and noise and just kind of how her community works there. And I think that this has another big impact on why the neighbors are all, they're all on board with this. I think all the neighbors get along very well and they're all friends and it's a real community. Last thing I want to say is, with this last heat wave, having a pool is real important to keep the kids at home and to future grandkids. And it's only getting hotter, it seems. I've had more calls for new swimming pools this last week than any time in my 30 years of doing this. So I think it's a real, it's a real benefit to someone's property to have a small swimming pool on this property. And I'll turn this over to Robin now. But I'm here, I'm happy to answer any questions and here to answer any questions.
Thanks. Yeah, I also just wanted to point out at the first ADR, there were some questions around like the noise of people using the pool, and was that going to be a concern to the neighbors? And I tried to explain, Allen Avenue is in the middle of downtown Ross. Like we hear kids coming in every day. We hear playgrounds. We talked about all the community events. We've got live bands in our front yard, several times a year. This isn't a place where we expect quiet. I think there are over a dozen kids in just like 5 houses around us who go to Ross School every day. We hear them, you know how kids are. It's a bustling, really like community-oriented neighborhood, and I think having the support, there just wasn't any question. I think because of the spirit of the place where we live, it is a place where we're a community. I think because of the way that our houses are close together, and we see it as an asset and not a not something that is a struggle for us. I also just did want to mention, if you go to slide 15 that, similar recent projects have been approved under, more constrained circumstances. For example, on 45 Bolinas, they were 2 feet from the property line and they had a higher impermeable space or lot coverage than we're proposing here. And so from an equity perspective, we think that this makes sense, that we're not going outside the bounds of what has historically been approved, and that you can see that on slides 16 and 17 as well. And so I think I would leave it at that for now. We can answer any questions and then save time that we may have for that.
Okay, you've used about 10 minutes, so you have about 5 after people talk.
Okay.
First of all, though, before you leave, does any member of the council have any questions for the applicant or for Mr. Eichstein?
I have a question. I know you have an approval already for the pool equipment. I just noticed on slide 10, you wrote the sound insulated pool equipment at 12 feet from the heater will have a decibel rating of 25 decibels. So that would mean that you're intending that it will really be quiet, and is that what you were intending to insulate, to have an enclosure that's also sound insulated? Is that
Correct.
the
That's the plan.
intention?
Yep.
Yes, yes.
Because that's important. I mean, I know you already have your approval, but in general, it's really nice to not have a motor noise that your neighbors hear. It's different hearing the noise of children playing, but a constant motor is annoying. So I think that's excellent if that's what you're planning. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, thanks. We'll now open it up to the public, and is there any member of the public who wishes to address us on this, regarding this project?
No raised hands, Mayor.
It doesn't appear that there's anyone here who, a member of the public who wishes to address. So we'll bring it back to the council for comment and decision.
I think that the most compelling argument to approve this is simply that all of the neighbors have pools that are outside, that are within the setback, that they're in the setback, and doesn't really follow that this property couldn't also do the same.
I think it's kind of bizarre that we don't have any authority over ADUs that can be 4 feet from the property line, and we're wringing our hands over a pool that in my mind is more 2-dimensional instead of 3-dimensional like an ADU. So, I mean, to me, and in light of what Elizabeth said and what Robin said, I think, and what Brad said, I think this is kind of a no-brainer. I think we should approve it. And I can make a motion to approve unless anybody else has anything to say.
Others may.
Okay.
No.
So I will,
Okay, well, I have
oh,
something to
yes,
say.
Beach.
I'm very concerned about setting a precedent. I'm afraid this is going to be a very full lot with the ADU and the pool. Nobody's going to be doing any running in this lot because there isn't any room to do it. And I'm very concerned about what we're going to hear in the future. Somebody's going to say, well, look, you let the Loonings put that pool in this tight location. Why are you turning us down? I'm not sure what to do about it. But I just want to express that concern. We're liable to come back, we're liable to hear about this one for years. Anyone else have any comments?
Well, I'm not so sure about the tightness of the lot. I think when there's a setback question, it's really how much does it affect the neighbors? Is the pool right next to somebody's bedroom window, for example, like that one on Redwood that didn't get out of ADR? But if it's, kind of a crowded lot, but it's their lot and they want it crowded, if the pool's not really bothering people, and my sense is that since all the other neighbors have pools, that one more pool doesn't bother people, And I'm okay with it. I don't feel like it sets a precedent that's going to be difficult.
Well, I will say that I think the applicants make a good point that this neighborhood is a little bit different than other places in Ross. It's close to the school. I'm sure that they hear a lot of sounds that come from the school and from other neighbors because they're close in and there's a lot of activity in the neighborhood. I'm almost talking myself into changing my mind. I haven't decided whether I've changed my mind.
I should make the motion quickly before you change your mind, right? So I will move to approve resolution number 2269.
Second.
All right, let's take the vote. How do you vote, Councilmember McMillan? Aye. Councilmember Robbins?
Aye.
Councilmember Kircher?
Aye.
Councilmember Breckus?
Aye.
And Mayor Cole?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, that brings us to. Agenda. Okay, the next item is 2 DeWitt Drive, design review and accessory dwelling unit and town council consideration of adoption of resolution number 2270. Rebecca?
Yes, thank you. Good evening once again. Given the time, I will try to make this as brief as I can. The property before you tonight is on the corner of Shady Lane and DeWitt Avenue. On June 27th, 2022, this a lot line adjustment was approved by the town of Ross. That includes this sort of blue outline box. Once it is recorded, this lot will be a total of 99,980 square feet. Tonight, the applicant is requesting demolition design review and an ADU application for approval to demolish the existing two-story residence and construction of a new 14,694 square foot two-story with basement single-family residence and a new 1,200 square foot detached accessory dwelling unit, detached garage, and a pool pavilion. The project conforms to the allowable lot coverage, height, and setbacks for the zoning district. Tonight, in addition to the findings required for design review, given the size of this project, greater than 10,000 square feet, the town also must make an additional finding should it approve the project. Regardless of a residentially zoned project's lot area, the town's design review ordinance states a maximum of 10,000 square feet of total floor area is recommended. Development above this floor area level may be permitted under this section if the council finds that such development intensity is appropriate and consistent with this section of the code, the Ross Municipal Code, and the Ross General Plan. Factors which would support this finding include, but aren't limited to, excellence of design, site planning, which minimizes environmental impacts, and compatibility with the character of the surrounding area. Should the council support this overage, staff has drafted findings that support the increased square footage based on the project's excellent design. The site planning minimizes the impact to the neighborhood, and the project is compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. Additionally, given the location of the project on the site, combined with the existing and proposed landscaping, it really does minimize the additional square footage. The existing property has many mature trees, most of which will be retained, and new trees are proposed to create more of a park-like setting. The home is proposed in a similar footprint as the existing. Perhaps the most significant change is to change the vehicle access on this property from DeWitt to an existing driveway on Shady Lane. The proposed home includes materials such as wood siding, which will be painted Benjamin Moore Simply White, Windows and doors are proposed in dark anodized bronze, and the roof is proposed in a composition shingle in a charcoal color. Prior to the ADR hearing in August, the applicant contacted 22 neighbors within the vicinity of the property. All of the neighbors that they were able to communicate with are in support of the project. The most significant feedback that they received was from the church on Shady Lane regarding the noise from a proposed pickleball court. That pickleball court was removed from the plans, and it is not on the plans before you tonight. Let's see, when it went to the ADR on August 16th, they recommended unanimously that the project complied with the design review criteria. And tonight, it is recommended that the council consider adoption of Resolution 2270, approving design review, demolition, and accessory dwelling unit permit for the subject property as described. And I am available for questions.
Does anyone have any questions?
I have just one question. Rebecca, I know I raised this earlier, but with the Huck residents on Lagunitas, there was such a lengthy discussion about whether we allow white homes. And I really think it's kind of crazy, and thank you for citing the section which doesn't explicitly say that, but I know that at that point in time, the council discussion, I don't remember, but it was basically that that's not allowed, even though the code doesn't, you can
Sure, I
cite the
have the
code,
code
but
here,
did you
yeah.
happen to look at that project?
I didn't happen to look at that project, but it's certainly under the council's purview tonight. I can read excerpts from the code that talk about color. The design review criteria speaks to soft and muted colors and earth tones. Wood tone range are preferred and generally should predominate. Color palette should be natural and muted. So this is certainly up for discussion tonight under these specific, the design review guidelines, as well as the criteria in the chapter 18.
But
Did
then,
the ADR discuss color?
They did not. They talked about the size, and it being that white would, almost seemed large to be that white. They also talked about the fact that from the street, you'll only be able to see sort of the top of the second story and then the roof, which is a charcoal. So given the sort of park-like setting, the white was sort of mitigated by the location of the house, as well as the screening that's
because
there.
it looks from the photos or the drawing, like you won't see the house from the street at all, so that no one will see what color their house is.
I think you'll see like the top third of the second story of the house.
Uh-huh.
But I
And-
think Mr. Kotzebue told us that was only from across the street.
That could be, he is here tonight, so he could speak to that.
In any case, we have that odd rule that, we can regulate the color of a house when it's being built, but then if someone wants to repaint it, they can paint it any color they want. So but anyway, it looks like you don't see it. It looks like you don't see this in any significant way. I think the whole White House was having something huge and big and kind of, visible to everyone from every angle, and that it doesn't seem to be the case here.
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering, it'd be nice, I mean, in my mind, we shouldn't approve a white home if the rule is no white home. On the other hand, if we were going to look at the code and say, hey, we have a right to interpret how we want, which I think is appropriate. I didn't even like the way the Huck one turned out. But then I think that we should follow that precedent going forward, and we should at least hopefully have staff keep some kind of notation about it so that we don't just say no white homes if we're going to agree to them. And to me, I get your point, and I think you could, but I also think that, homes should be either allowed to be white or not, and not a change just because you have a bigger lot than another one. That's my thought.
I think it depends on where the home is. Like, there's a big white home on Fernhill, and it's really white and super visible. But this house is not going to be visible because of the size of the lot and the very mature screening that goes around the perimeter of the property. So I think it's different.
I would just prefer to see us be more consistent than that. And I don't think the code necessarily invites, like, if you can't see it or something. But I know, I think you're talking about the one that's obscenely long across from Branson. So that was, I'm done with my questions.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions?
Okay, we'll open it up to the public. Is there any member of the public who wishes to address us on this item?
Applicant first has 15 minutes to present.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I didn't mean to chip you. You've got 15 minutes, and if you want to reserve, if you don't use it all, you reserve it for later.
I'm trying, I'm having technical difficulties all of a sudden.
Okay, you said.
That's you.
Okay.
You're up.
Yeah, I'm David Kotzebue, and I'm the architect and representing Tom and Linda Coates. Linda's here in the audience, and Tom's joining us via Zoom. So anyway, I just thought I'd like to say, well, obviously this is the existing condition. This is a recent drone shot we took, and we used this photograph to base our rendering. So we feel like our renderings are photorealistic and really do show the design as it will be. I guess you can just go to the next one. Yeah, so this is the bird's eye aerial shot of the entire property. And as Rebecca said, the main component here is the access from Shady Lane. And this is really a site-driven design. So once we had this opportunity to come in off of Shady, it has sort of a meandering driveway. And once you pass where we're proposing the ADU, which is nestled amongst a couple of mature oak trees, then the property opens up. And it's like that today. If any of you had been on that side, you can see it. And it's sort of a dramatic effect. And so then the main house that we're proposing will be visible, and our driveway will start and basically direct the guests towards the front door. And the house is organized to be in the center of the lot, with the two-story portion of it in the middle, for all intents and purposes, as close to the middle as we possibly could be. This is almost 2.5 acres, by the way, of flat land. And then on the periphery, on the elements and those are the ones you see with the story poles. And what I had mentioned is you literally cannot see the second floor from the street because of the screening and because of the single-story structures in the foreground. So you go to the next one. There's a perspective. Yeah, so this is the overall view. Oh, no. Well, I was just going to say that was the view that is in comparison to the first shot. It's from the same angle, and it gives you an idea of how the house sits in the mature landscaping. And then these views are the elevations. And I've drawn them in a way that those are the accessory buildings, but I've drawn them in a way you can see the relationship of scale to being what's existing and what we're proposing. And what we're proposing, I think, is in context of what's there right now. And what's there right now is greater than 10,000 square feet. And so to that point, I think that this 2.42 acre flat lot can easily support the area that we're proposing. If one were to take that half acre at 15%, that's 3,200 feet. So you say 3,200 plus the 11.2 that's already there, and then you're in the ballpark of where we are. So if someone did an SB9 or subdivision of that lot, that's what we would end up with. So I really do think the lot can support more than 10,000 feet. And I guess as regard to the white is concerned, you really only truly see the single-story structures from the outside, and they're filtered through trees and screening. And I personally think white is a classic building color. And I think it really sets off the landscaping. So I find it an attractive use of color for a house. And I think what we're doing is we're taking this property and we're putting it into a more contextual design to California and wood siding, and with granted it's a composition, but a shingle style roof, and with the darker windows, and then the natural stone paving, travertine, limestone. So I think that covers it. So if anybody has any questions, then we'll give you that.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Kotzebue? Hey, thank you. Let me see now, public comment. Is there anyone in the public who wishes to address us regarding this?
We have someone I'm going to bring in. If I can get my mouse to work. I'm bringing in Paul Sagas. Go ahead. Go ahead, Paul. Hello, are you there?
Sorry, now you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, very sorry. I will take less than 1 minute. I'm Paul Sagas here with Debbie Sagas. We live at 1 DeWitt, which is immediately adjacent to 2 DeWitt. Now, my personal opinion, the previous owner was a prevaricator. They really violated a lot of terms and agreements of the town. However, we never objected because we wanted peaceful neighborhood. Therefore, when the Coates came in, it was night and day better. They had openness, transparency, and consideration. Debbie and I walked the property and looked at the story poles. Based upon that, we have no objection to the project, and we recommend that the council approve the project as proposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other members of the public?
No, Mayor.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the council for comment.
I just want to verify that there's no rebuttal from the property owner, which I don't think there would be, but he has the
Wish to
opportunity.
rebut anything that was said? Okay. If you want to. Okay. For the record, she said thank you to the neighbors. All right, we'll bring it back to the council. Does anyone have any comment?
Can I make a motion? I move to approve resolution number 2270.
Second.
All right, how do you vote, Councilmember McMillan?
Aye.
Councilmember Robbins?
Aye.
Councilmember Kircher?
Aye.
Councilmember Breckes?
Aye.
And Mayor Cool.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Okay, that brings us to the end of public hearings. We've got a couple of no action items. Does anybody have any correspondence they wish to report on? Okay, I guess not. Does anybody wish to discuss putting on future council items? I guess not, so I think the next move is adjournment. I'm terrible at running these meetings. I think we ought to appoint somebody